Hello friends and welcome back. It's Noreen here today and I have a new card project to share with you for the Altenew Paint-A-Flower Clematis release. I began by stamping the image onto Altenew's ultra white and smooth watercolor paper with permanent black ink. You'll notice that the image is not quite as large as an A2 size card. It would actually work beautifully on a 4-bar card, and you'll see several inspiring projects today by other artists where they've cropped the image after stamping and painting it and put it on an A2 size card. But I wanted to see if I could extend the image and fill in the whole entirety of an A2 size card panel by simply using a straight edge ruler and drawing the lines out from where they started on the stamped image, again using a permanent black pen and just drawing from the lines that are existing on the stamped image. If you look closely at the stamped image, you'll notice that the slats of the lattice that the clematis is climbing on are outlined with a thicker dark line on the very edge, and then to indicate sort of a shadowy edge, there's a slightly lighter, thinner line on the inside. So that's what I did with my pen. I drew heavily on the outside line of the lattice slats and then added just a hint of a thinner line on the inner edge. I'm going to be using Altenew Watercolor Brush Markers for my coloring today, and I've assembled an assortment of colors including moss, sea forest, turquoise, sea breeze, ultraviolet, and finally some jet black for shading, shadowing, and tinting the other colors. I couldn't find my watercolor palette, so I'm substituting with the next best thing I had at hand, which is just the back side of my plastic stamp storage envelope, and with that white cardstock inside, the colors read accurately and it's easy to clean off. The technique I'm painting with today is a combination of wet on wet and wet on dry. So I'll go in and with a very light pale color of paint in my brush, paint the base of the flower petals, and then go back and pick up a more intense shade of blue or violet and add that over top and just let them blend naturally and organically as they dry. So now I'm just going to turn on some music so you can watch the rest of the flowers being painted, and then I'll pick up again at the leaves and the lattice work. So I've added some new green shades to my makeshift paint palette, and I'm just going in and painting the leaves first with water and then adding a very light shade of green overall. And as you watch, you'll see me use a tiny bit of the black ink. These pigments are extremely intense, so it doesn't take much, but just by adding a little bit of that black intensifies the color or deepens the shades of green, and then I can go back and add that over for a bit of shadowing. So in that manner I complete coloring the rest of the leaves on that card panel, trying to mimic the natural look or what you see in nature by alternating dark and light and shades of green overall. Sorry, I'm almost off screen at this point, but my last step is to go in with the diluted black paint just to deepen some of the shadows. So for my first sample card I made, I colored green leaves on the flowers, and then I colored a green background in behind, and I found that the leaves just kind of got lost in the background, and so I went back for my second attempt, and I'm choosing a random assortment of neutral and brown shades, including Sea Forest, Dusk, which is actually a bit of blue, Paper Bag, Espresso, and Winter Fog. Yikes, I just had to overdub or redo the voiceover part for that last bit because you could totally hear my stomach growling. I should probably go have breakfast. Anyway, I'm just filling in the background. I can't really tell you what this is meant to look like, if it's climbing flowers up against a house or whatever, but it's kind of just a contrasting background so that the leaves and the blooms on the trellis really stand out. So at this point I kind of got ahead of myself, finishing the card as I always do with some watercolor paint speckles, and then I got looking at it and realized no, the latticework slats need a little bit more definition, so I added some of the black watercolor pigment to my palette, added a lot of water to dilute it, and went around the whole painting just adding shadows where any leaves or flowers lay over top of the wood slats. So to complete the card, I scored and folded an A2 size card base, and I trimmed my painted card panel slightly smaller on all four sides, and now I'm stamping a vellum sentiment strip. I'm using 2 of the sentiments from the Paint-A-Flower Clematis stamp set, stamping them one at a time, stamping and heat embossing the beautiful first, so that I can tuck the tiny little hello stamp in so that it lines up just with the top of the B of beautiful. To add some extra interest to the vellum greeting strip, I decided to tear it across the top. Now, tearing vellum paper is kind of interesting. When you go in one direction, it tears beautifully in a straight line. You hardly have to guide it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the direction that I was tearing it today. And here is evidence of my inability to have a plan in mind and stick to it. I thought, well, I might like a black stamped sentiment, or I might like a vellum. So let's do both. In the end, I decided I liked the vellum better. So here's my finished card now. If you liked what you saw here today, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't already. In the video description below, I will link my blog where you can go for more photos, descriptive details, links that you can click on to purchase, and more details about the giveaway that Altenew is offering. Thank you so much for stopping by today, and I'll see you again soon.